Good evening, everyone. My name is Councillor Debbie Arnott and I am the Mayor at Warrnambool City Council and I will be chairing tonight's council meeting. I'd like to formally welcome everyone watching this council meeting. This council meeting will be live streamed to allow for public viewing and transparency, and if any technical problems interrupt the live stream during the meeting will be adjourned until the issues are rectified. This scheduled council meeting will be conducted in accordance with the council's governance rules, and any interruptions to the meeting or actions not in line with behaviour expectations will be dealt with in accordance with these rules. I'll ask the councillors to stand for the opening prayer and acknowledgement of traditional owners. We will now proceed to the items of the agenda, commencing with the opening prayer and an acknowledgement of the traditional owners. Almighty God, grant to this council wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose for the good governance of this city. Amen. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we stand and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Are there any apologies for this meeting?
There are none, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, at item 3 on the agenda, we have a recommendation before us to confirm the minutes of the scheduled meeting of Council held on the 5th of December 2022 and the additional Council meeting held on the 13th of December 2022. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Do I have a mover? Councillor Jelly. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Blaine. Thank you. All those in favour? This motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4, conflicts of interest. If a councillor has a conflict of interest, they must declare it now and do so again just prior to the item being discussed. A councillor who has declared a conflict of interest must leave the meeting and remain outside the room while the matter is being considered or any vote is taken. Once the matter is resolved, the councillor will return to the meeting. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? Councillor Jelly?
Yes, Mayor, I've got a conflict with agenda item 7.2, short stay accommodation on local law, as I have a general conflict of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Ziegler?
Yes, Mayor, I've got a conflict of interest again with item 7.2, short-term accommodation matters.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the mayoral presentation. We held our community awards last week in the new library, and this gave us the opportunity to acknowledge the special people within our municipality who give time, energy and expertise to make our wonderful part of the world even better. We were very fortunate to receive many nominations, and the very worthy award winners were Citizen of the Year Gareth Collerton, Event of the Year the Multicultural Festival, Local Achievers Doctors Ron and Carlin Sproston, and a Young Achiever Shiley Corrigan. And congratulations to all those who participated in making the event so successful. We're also very fortunate to welcome 20 new citizens to our country, and it really was a pleasure to be able to take part in such an important day for them. We're absolutely thrilled when people choose to become Australians, and more so when they decide to call Warrnambool their home. Just like to touch on our busy tourist season. We've been very fortunate. We've had a good number of tourists and it's been wonderful for the businesses and trade. Our bookings at Surfside and Shipwreck Bay Holiday Parks have been strong, and the Flagstaff Hill numbers so far for this summer are up on last year. And let's hope that this can all continue moving forward. We'll now move to item 6, public question time. All questions must be received no later than 2 hours before the commencement of the scheduled meeting, or 4 p.m. on the day of the scheduled council meeting, where it is scheduled to commence at 5:45 p.m, at which the question is to be asked. CEO, are there any public questions tonight?
Yeah, we have two, Madam Mayor. The first one is from Anne McRae. I'm not quite sure if Anne is here and wishes to present her question, but we can certainly read it out.
Yeah.
Can the Warrnambool City Council clarify who is responsible for the cost and construction of the footpath on the western side of the new Lyndoch Living Medical Clinic on Hopkins Road? And when will this footpath be constructed? The pedestrian walkway on the Hopkins Road frontage of the medical clinic is incomplete. It runs from the building to the site boundary and then finishes with only rubble and dirt on the roadside. The officers have provided the following, Madam Mayor. The endorsed landscape plans for the construction of the medical centre show a new footpath frontage along the front of the site, and Council is following up with the developer around how and when this can be delivered.
Thank you. And the second question?
The second one is from Joan Kelson, and Joan is here. You wish to put yours forward?
Terrific. My question this evening is, prior to voting on the location for the business case for the new art gallery, was consideration given to the following. Firstly, the current location being reinvented with better use of the existing space, including the use of floating walls, and secondly, the extension of existing gallery by linking to the old library site. If so, what was the outcome? And could I please have a verbal and written response?
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Joan. The answer is yes, the current site on Liebig Street was considered as a potential site for a new regional art gallery. This was done through a feasibility study conducted on the existing site in 2021. It considered a reimagined design that included more exhibition space, improved back of house, storage and loading functionality, and the floor plan of the existing site was increased so that it could accommodate travelling exhibitions. The existing site hasn't been removed from Council's options as a site for a new regional art gallery, and should Council decide to further investigate this site, new concept designs would be developed and extensive community engagement process would be undertaken also. Excuse me. In regard to the existing gallery linking the old library site, this was explored during the feasibility study, but due to the limited floor plan size, the old library being only 650 square metres, this option wasn't progressed. If Council did decide to proceed with a new regional art gallery on the existing site, Council would consider activation of the cultural precinct as a whole to ensure the proximity of key cultural venues is optimised. This could include the Lighthouse Theatre and the Library and Learning Centre.
Yeah, sorry, the first part of your question answer, was that actually referring to a new library or the existing one being renovated?
It would be to do with the existing, the old library being renovated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, we are now moving to the officers' report section of the agenda, and I would like to remind you of the speaking times allocated for each item during the meeting, as outlined in our governance rules. The mover of a motion may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes to open the debate, and then a further 2 minutes later on to exercise their right of reply and to close the debate. Any other councillor, including the seconder, may speak for or against a motion for no more than 3 minutes. To assist councillors with time limits, you will hear a signal when you have reached the maximum time allowed. I would ask you to respect the time limits, please. Item 7, reports. 7.1, Audit and Risk Committee, Biannual Report of Activities, agenda page number 5. Directorate, Department Corporate Strategies. The purpose of this report is to present the Audit and Risk Committee Biannual Report. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I speak a motion? No, thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, what is your motion?
The Council notes the Audit and Risk Committee biannual report, which details activities of the committee covering the meetings held on 2nd of September and 15th of November 2022.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Blaine? Councillor Paspaliaris, sorry. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will, thank you. Just to note that obviously the report is pretty straightforward, but the committee has been diligent in continuing to follow up on officers finalising some outstanding high-risk recommendations. With regards to this, the officers seem to acknowledge where timely completion of actions is appropriate. However, there have been some delays, mainly related to personnel. My observations support Donna Porritt's comments where council officers cooperate well with the auditing teams of both internal and external auditors as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Arnott. Councillor Paspaliaris is totally correct in what she's saying about accountability, especially through the audit and risk, and it's something that I think has been going really well, especially over the last 6 months since our last report. One of the other major pieces of work that the audit and risk has been working on, sorry, excuse me, is the VARGO audit into grants and ensuring that grants that are given out from council, it's more transparent to how these grants are awarded, and that there's more accountability on how the funds are spent. So it's been a good 6 months, and I look forward to the next 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Are there any other councillors that wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Jelly?
Thanks, Mayor Arnott. Yes, good to get this report, and very much interested that the VARGO audit has been, for the grants, been looked at in depth, because it's very important that we've brought all this into line now. That's what was recommended, and it just ensures all the grants, all the spending of any of those funds and who receives them is consistent across, and that's fair for community groups and anyone receiving those. And I'd like to thank all the independent members. There's been a few changes in the hierarchy there over the last 6 months, but all good people who have given their time for that, and thank them all very much. And also thank our two councillor reps, Councillor Paspaliaris and Councillor Blaine, for their input too.
Thank you. Councillor Jelly, any further councillors wish to speak? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I'd like the City Council to acknowledge the input and awareness of Leon Fitzgerald's contribution as Chairman of the Audit and Risk Committee until he resigned in September last year. Upon his information and alertness on the profitability and dire financial situation of the future of the Warrnambool Sale Yards. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there any further councillors who wish to speak? There being no further speakers, Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak before closing the debate? Thank you. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We will now move on to item 7.2, the conflict of interest for Councillors Jelly and Councillor Ziegler. This report provides information on the introduction of a new short-stay accommodation local law and the results of public consultation undertaken regarding the proposed new law. The recommendation that Council... Oh, sorry. Are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillor Blaine?
I've just got a couple of questions. I know it says in the report the cost is expected to be covered by existing budgets in administering this report, but what is the actual estimated cost of enforcement between corporate and local laws in enforcement in this law? I asked it last time we put it out for consultation and we still didn't receive an answer.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll ask, with respect to our corporate colleagues over here, not quite sure what the role of local laws would be in enforcing financial imposition on the short-stay accommodation staff, but we can talk about
It says
the
in the report that local laws will be expected to enforce it.
Through you, Mayor, there is no additional resources that are being allocated to it, so it would be within the existing resources of council. If there were instances where we would be being asked to enforce the local law because there are breaches around the behaviours, then it would be through the normal complement of local laws, and enacting this today would give the powers to those local laws officers to do so. Within the administration, there would be no additional resources that would be allocated to it. If there was an increased burden, it would be absorbed into the existing complement.
Thank you, Mr Utri. Do you have a further question, Councillor
Yeah,
Lane?
can I clarify on that one, or do you want me to move on? Because the question was, I understand it's within existing resources, but there is going to be manpower in administering this law, so what's it going to cost? Because it is an administration burden.
We don't believe in the way that it's been structured to be the way that it's been structured in the first instance that there's any evident burden, because it's voluntary in the first instance, so it's really around collection of fees through our normal collection points. I think that it would be, if there isn't adherence to the law, there would be something that would need to be reviewed after the first year of operations, and if there were any resource implications, then we'll review it and report back to the council.
Thank you.
It says in the report this is to bridge the gap between commercial operators and Airbnb owners. So what measures have been put in place to gauge how this law will achieve that?
Mr Utri, I'll ask you to answer that.
There's nothing overt that's been put in place to do that, but if council wishes to undertake an exercise where we're doing the measurement, I think that in the first instance it would be through survey of those premises that are identified, and also from the commercial premises in town to see whether they've had any change in terms of the uptake of accommodation to them.
And just one,
Thank you.
one last one, if that's all right. Because we're just about to vote on this, at the briefing in January the 23rd, I requested a full copy of all the submissions and was told they were going to be provided. As of tonight, I haven't received them, and I don't believe anyone else has. So why haven't we received the submissions, only the summary that's in the report, in order to fully inform councillors' decision?
The full submissions in the report, including...
Through you, Mayor, the full submission information is in the report, including the verbatim information. There's no more information to add.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I would like to move a motion to adopt the new local law in relation to short stay accommodation and implement the new short stay accommodation fee as per the officer's recommendation be accepted. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. That's okay?
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll answer to that as well. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Paspaliaris. Thank you. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. After much research by Council reviewing other municipalities implementing and the introduction of a new local law and short stay accommodation fee is the most appropriate method to resolve this issue. I would have preferred the state government to accept responsibility regarding this issue, but lack of action or acknowledgement at state level, and it does not seem to be a legislative priority at the moment, thus compelling local councils to implement this local law to provide clear guidelines for the operation of this type of accommodation to ensure proprietors maintain a level of responsibility compatible with the responsibilities of traditional accommodation providers. If and when the Commonwealth or state governments implement short-stay accommodation laws, this will trigger a review of this local law and its appropriateness to any legislation introduced. The aim of this local law is to ensure financial contribution to the visitor economy from the providers of the short-stay accommodation, impacting those who are all making commercial benefit from short-stay accommodation without contribution to the visitor economy. And the annual fee will also be tax-deductible expense to those declaring income on short-term accommodation. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Plaspaliaris, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. I think that this proposal is obviously not unusual because it is in line with actions taken by many other municipalities in trying to address inequity between registered accommodation providers and homeowners providing holiday accommodation. I guess the variety of options that have been assessed, that have been implemented by other councils, shows the process and the considerations that other councils have looked at as far as options go. I think that the annual registration fee to me seems reasonable and appropriate. I guess the intention for hotel and motel owners is to generate income from providing holiday accommodation, and similarly the intention for homeowners through sites like Airbnb and short stays is to also generate income from providing accommodation. So it's a fairly similar exercise. Fundamentally, it doesn't appear fair to me to charge traditional accommodation providers like hotel and motel owners thousands of dollars per year in commercial rates or assess them commercially, whilst owners of short stay accommodation do not bear a comparative burden. Owners using their properties as short-term accommodation are generally reaping, I would say, commercial-like returns. So I believe that those owners can pay their fair share. And whilst, as Councillor Taylor mentioned, there may be some state government initiative in future, that could be a long way off. For now, a mandatory local government register and an annual registration fee per year to me seems reasonable and appropriate. And I think it is testament to the fact that a lot of councils are looking at this and have already implemented things like this, that it is becoming an increasingly important issue locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Plaspaliaris. Is there any other councillor who wishes to speak to the motion? Councillor Blaine.
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. Look, I see this proposed law as an additional administration burden on council and the Warrnambool ratepayers, and I struggle to understand how with this fee it will achieve what it aims. Understand what it aims to achieve. It's interesting Councillor Plaspaliaris talks about Airbnbs as an income source. So does that mean that every residential property that runs a business out of it should be paying more than its fair share because they derive an income out of that? It's an interesting question, especially when we continue to talk about equality. If the aim is to achieve equity between commercial accommodation providers, this law falls incredibly short in my view. To achieve equity, Airbnb owners need to be held to the same standards as commercial providers, including the CFA checks, health inspections, insurances. It goes on and on. It's not just a commercial property rate. But these regulations, they're not the domain of local council. They're the domain of state government. Advocacy is the key to creating equality. And I don't accept what's in the report and what Councillor Taylor has said and Councillor Plaspaliaris, that it isn't a legislative priority. I believe this shows we haven't done enough to advocate, and this is our failing, not the state's. Will this new law create equality? I don't believe so. Will this new law address the housing shortage in Warrnambool? I don't think it will. Will this new law add more work to the administration of council, which we can't be told how much it's going to cost within our resources allocated already, for minimal benefit of Warrnambool and our residents? I do believe so. This isn't a step forward. This is council creating more work without looking at the benefits and trying to achieve their desired outcome, in my view. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Akosh, would you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Annan. This proposal, according to Division 3 of the Local Government Act 2020, outlined council power to create local laws and the requirement of local law, including consistency with existing act, laws, regulations, and planning scheme. Warrnambool is no exception from nearby municipalities who adopted this policy. So I'm happy to support this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Akosh. This proposed new $400 fee, I think, is a really good thing for our local laws to introduce. We need to help level the playing field between short stay accommodation and what we call traditional accommodation properties. At this moment, the short stay accommodation industry is largely unregulated. I equate it to the likes of comparing Uber and taxis. Why should not we have some degree of regulation to help level this playing field? These accommodation providers are basically running a business off the back of traditional accommodation owners. They make good money. $400 is a very minimal fee. It would be barely 2 nights accommodation over a year. They need to be held accountable for the code of conduct with their occupants, their visitors. They need to take responsibility for the behaviour of their visitors, their guests. We need to look at the waste disposal, parking. I question Councillor Blaine saying it's going to cost a whole lot more to council. It may initially be a little bit more time and effort, but once that register is up and running, how much more difficult should it be? It should not be difficult. Yes, we do need the state government to legislate on this, and yes, there has been moves put forward by different bodies to the government about it. I also think the Airbnbs, they should be required to have a certain safety standards and comply with CFA regulation. As I said, I am all for this motion, and I think it is time that we took a lead on this. It is not designed to alleviate the housing rental shortage. This is designed to get some regulation, some standards into it, and to get these Airbnb people to contribute to the visitor economy as far as advertising goes, like traditional owners have to, and the traditional owners, they pay, as Councillor Paspaliaris has said, commercial rates. So I will leave it there. Thank you. There being no further speakers, Councillor Taylor, do you wish to close?
No, thank you, Mayor Annan.
I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you. Vote is carried 4-1. We'll now move to item 7.3, the Customer Service Charter, agenda page number 16, Corporate Strategies. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
That council adopt the revised Warrnambool City Council Customer Service Charter 2023-2027 as contained in attachment 2 of the agenda.
Thank you, councillor Ziegler. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Blaine, thank you. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Arnott. It's very gratifying to see that improvements have been made in all measures of the customer service for the council. But it's not to rest on our laurels and shouldn't think it's extraordinary. It's only what we should be doing after all. However, the staff are to be thanked and congratulated for their efforts to bring these customer service measures up, and I think that credit's due to them for the improvements. They should be acknowledged for that. It's also gratifying to see that we measure up pretty well against several other municipalities, but again, it's something that I don't think we should think is extraordinary. It's just what's owed to the public.
Thank you, councillor Ziegler. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Arnott. Councillor Ziegler's right. I think one of the key themes of the new Customer Service Charter is actually strengthening accountability, especially being responsive and accountable to what action's taken in relation to customer service requests. While we're going through this too, we also being more responsive around not just business hours but outside of business hours, because the business of council doesn't stop after 5 o'clock or on weekends. I think that the new Customer Service Charter is a positive step forward for council, ensuring that we continue to deliver on the expectations of the community. And as Councillor Ziegler's pointed out, even though our customer satisfaction results have been strong, this is something that we can continue to build on. I really do think this charter reflects that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Jelly?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. Yes, agree with colleagues here tonight. Customer Service Charter is a guide for all council staff. It's not, people might get the thought that it's just when you walk in the front door or the phone's answered. It's across the board for all staff in all areas. So it's great to have the expectation clearly defined for everyone so that a community member knows what to expect from the moment they make a phone call, write a letter, come in, meet and see someone about response times and things like that. And staff do a great job, but we must keep at this to ensure continued gratification for everyone.
Thank you, councillor Jelly. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion? No, thank you. There being no further speakers, councillor Ziegler, do you wish to close?
No, thanks, Mayor.
I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I will now move on to item 7.4, the Quarterly Financial Report, October to December 2022. Agenda page number 19, Directorate Corporate Strategies. The purpose of this report is to present to Council the financial performance for the 3 months ended 31st of December 2022. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
The quarterly financial report for the period of October to December 2022 be received.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Taylor? Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Arnott. Overall, our budget's still favourable. It's tracking all right. It's come back a bit, but it's still tracking at 220,000 compared to 220,000 ahead compared to forecast. I know it's something that I've probably spoken about with the financial report a few times, but it still keeps coming up, and it's probably one of the biggest, in my view, one of the biggest risks to cancel. It's staff. Not only does it affect our service delivery, but looking at the financial report, there's contractors who we're using in order to fill vacancies. And in my view, it's not something that can continue to be sustained. And that's eaten up some of our surplus. That was 271,000 of our budget. So it's probably something that we really need to be brainstorming how we can actually fill these roles within council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. Yes, it is pleasing to see a favourable financial position of $0.223 million to the forecast due to savings in salaries because of vacant positions, favourable timing of projects and favourable variance during to the timing of loan borrowings. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Are there any councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Jolly?
Thank you. Yes, agree with my colleagues here. It's tracking well. It has dropped a bit, but there are various things in there. Just one thing that was discussed at last week's briefing, and I would like further clarification, is that the financial report provided a statement saying that the Reed Oval project was $125,000 above forecast budget. This was news to us last week, so still waiting full clarification of what that actually was made up of, because it was something we didn't know about until a week ago, and I look forward to receiving a full explanation of that in the next week.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Ziegler?
I'd just like to support Councillor Jelly's queries with regard to the so-called $125,000 overspend at the Reed Oval, when we had been quite happy and pleased that the project had come in under budget, and we find disturbingly through the newspaper that this had was not in fact true. I'd like to know the full details of how that anomaly has come about. I know at briefing it was discussed that there is an explanation, but I think that should be made public.
How could you not know?
Hey, excuse me. Councillor, Mr Kelson, excuse me.
Yes. Well, how could you not know?
Mr Kelson, you're not part of the meeting. You have not put a question forward. Now, please be quiet.
I'll send one in next week.
You please do that.
Thank you.
But you can be quiet for now, thank you. You know the procedure.
Thanks very much.
Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion? I will make comment, as I was named in the article in the Standard, and I have since come across further information regarding this, about Reed Oval. The works specified in the Reed Oval contract were delivered on time and under budget. That is fact. After the project was completed, additional opportunities within the precinct were identified by council staff. These were outside the scope of the contract but enhanced the accessibility and amenity of the area. These included safety bollards for vehicles inside the reserve, additional disabled car parking spaces and an extra accessible viewing area. A decision was made based on the value the improvements would provide to carry out the additional work. Some other costs, such as temporary fencing, were incurred as a result of hosting the successful AFLW match in October. The additional works were funded out of council's reserves, and they were made from savings in other areas. Given the work was to enhance access and better manage traffic, the cost of these items should have been allocated to separate components of council's infrastructure budget. However, there were process flaws and they were bundled with the overall Reed Oval project cost. This made no difference to Council's bottom line, but has given an inaccurate summary of the contracted work and the total of the additional project works. I can say that I am disappointed in what was perceived in the report, and myself and Councillor Jelly on Saturday. The true facts were not presented, and there has been a flaw in, as I said, the process of where these funds were allocated. So thank you. So Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak before you close?
No, thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you. There being no further speakers, I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? No, carried unanimously. Thank you. We will now move on to item 7.5, the proposed amendment to the Warrnambool Planning Scheme Riverview Terrace. Agenda page number 20, Directed City Growth. This report provides information on a planning scheme amendment request received from Myers Planning Group on behalf of P&M Altman to rezone land at Riverview Terrace, numbers 31, 32, 130, 230, 330, 430, 530 and 630, land at Hopkins Point Road, numbers 4, 6 and 10 to 12, and all of the lots within Casuarina Court, Warrnambool, to the General Residential Zone 1. A combined planning application for a 2-lot subdivision at 32 Riverview Terrace is also proposed. It is recommended that Council request authorisation from the Minister for Planning to prepare an amendment to the Warrnambool Planning Scheme. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I move that we accept the recommendation in the report.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ziegler, thank you. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Arnott. Just quickly on this one, this is really a sorry, excuse me. This is really a cleaning up of zoning all around this particular piece of land. It is most of it is general residential one, and with the proposed planning scheme change and the proposed subdivision, it doesn't seem out of character with the surrounding area or the amenities, so I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Just to endorse Councillor Blaine's comments, it just seems like a no-brainer to me. That particular area is clearly residential one. Most of them, the domiciles there are in that particular category. It makes perfect sense to go down this path.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Are there any councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. The proposed subdivision application is currently prohibited under the Rural Living Zone. Therefore, a rezoning must occur before this application can be altered. The Logan's Beach Strategic Framework Plan recommends rezoning of the land to neighbourhood residential zone, and discussions have been held with officers of the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning who are comfortable with the council proceeding with the rezoning of the land on the north side of Hopkins Point Road to General Residential Zone 1, which is consistent with the zoning of surrounding land to the west and east and will provide landowners with modest development opportunities. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Are there any councillors who wish to speak further? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. I just might add that I do agree with the officer's assessment and recommendation that current zoning in this area is inappropriate when considered against the existing pattern of development within the area. So I think that the rezoning is appropriate and the subdivision is also appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak before closing?
No, thank you, Mayor Arnott.
I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We will now move on to item 7.6, the planning application PP 2022-0201-8 Henry Street, Warrnambool. Agenda page 24, Directorate City Growth. This report summarises the planning assessment that provides a recommendation for the application for the construction of 2 dwellings on a lot and recommends that Council issue a notice of decision to grant a permit subject to conditions. Councillors, do I have any questions before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
That we accept the recommendations as shown in the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris. Thank you. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I will just quickly speak to it in terms of, I do appreciate that there were 8 submissions in terms of objections, but the grounds of objection were almost all in relation to the intended use of the dwelling or dwellings, which the use is not what is being assessed with this application. I think that the proposed dwellings are sympathetic to the area, specifically being single-storey dwellings, and by comparison, the adjacent property at number 6 has 3 existing single-storey dwellings. So, in my view, it is an appropriate application, and I would support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Blaine?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I agree with Councillor Paspaliaris that it's not a super dense development. It's only going from 1 residence to 2. And look, I understand the objections from the 8 objectors, but there is a real need for more social housing in Warrnambool. It's not going to be densely populated in that street either. It's going to be, apart from those 2, it's going to be fairly spread out, and hopefully as these properties continue, as more and more of these applications come through, they'll be spread amongst the city, which will be really, really exciting. It's important moving forward that there is more social housing and more supply on the market to try and accommodate the chronic housing shortage that we do have here. And look, I think it's an exciting development, and I'm happy to support it. And it's good to finally see some of the big build funds finally hitting the ground from the state government, because, you know, we need it. Thank you.
Are there any further councillors? Councillor Jelly?
Yes, I'd agree with my colleagues tonight. I think the intention of it to go from having 1 dwelling to be able to have 2 dwellings to support 2 families, that was the intention of the build. And it is great to see some of these buildings coming to fruition and planning. And as Councillor Blaine just said, we've got a real need for housing, affordable housing and community housing in the city, and I think this is great.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Are there any further councillors who wish to speak? Excuse me. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
Yes, I'll just sum up my feelings. I don't see that this particular development is outside the character of the precinct at all. As Councillor Blaine and Councillor Jelly have mentioned, that it is another very small step in the direction of providing more social housing. In that respect, it's commendable, and I think that, in fact, it's going to be present more benefits to our city than any detraction, so I'm quite happy to make the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We will now go on to item 7.7, Tender Award 2022-050, Kindergarten Cleaning Services 2022. Agenda page 29, Directorate Community Development. This report provides information on award of contract 2022-050, Kindergarten Cleaning Services 2022. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I would like to move a motion the Council award contract 2022-050 Kindergarten Cleaning Services to Gen Clean Whistler Cleaner for the tendered lump sum of amount of $441,904.90, including GST for an initial term of 2 years with 2 one-year options, and authorise the CEO to sign, seal and vary the contract as required as per the officer's recommendation be accepted. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Blain, thank you. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. The current kindergarten cleaning contract has expired, allowing Council to test the market and ensure that it is receiving the best value for money in a fair and transparent way in line with the Council's procurement policy. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you. Councillor Blain, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Arnott. I think this is a really good outcome, and it's a better cleaning contract than what we had previously. Maybe a little bit higher, but it's good to see that the state government's actually coming to the party to help pay for this with the introduction of free 3-year-old kinder next year. So I think it's important we have safe, clean kindergartens for our children and staff, so I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Thank you. There being no further speakers, Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor Arnott.
I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to item 7.8, Advisory Committee Reports, agenda page number 31, Directorate Executive Services. This report contains the record of 2 advisory committee meetings and 1 reference group meeting. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blain, what is your motion?
I move that the records of the Warrnambool Regional Airport Reference Group meeting held on the 21st of November 2022, the Community and International Relations Committee held on December 6, 2022, and the Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee held on the 9th of December 2022 be received.
Thank you, Councillor Blain. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Blain, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Is there any further councillors who wish to speak? Thank you. There being no further speakers, Councillor Blain, do you wish to close?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I'll now move on to item 7.9, informal meetings of council reports, agenda page number 32, Directorate Executive Services. The purpose of this report is to provide council with copies of informal meetings of council, previously known as Assembly of Councillor Records, as previously required under section 80A2 of the Local Government Act 1989. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, what is your motion?
That the records of the informal meetings of council held on 12th and 19th December 2022, 23rd and 30th of January 2023 be received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Akosh, thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Akosh, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thanks.
Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? Thank you. There being no further speakers, Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak before closing the debate? Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.10, Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council Activities Summary Report. Agenda page number 33, Directorate Executive Services. This report summarises Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council activities since the last ordinary meeting, which particularly relate to key social, economic and environmental issues of direct relevance to the Warrnambool community. Are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
That the Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council Activities Summary Report be received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Jelly. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Jelly, do you wish to speak to the motion? Are there any councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Taylor?
Just a comment to your opening of the play space at Lake Patobe on the 9th of December. It is good to see now that a lot of comments regarding the Lake Patobe's play space have quietened off, and I'm sure it'll be a great, valuable asset to Warrnambool in the future. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak before closing the motion? Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Have we had any notices of emotions?
None submitted, Madam Mayor.
We'll move to item 9, general business. General business is for items that are of a minor or routine nature, and I retain the right to reject items in accordance with clause 29(2) of the governance rules. I remind councillors that you will have a maximum of 2 minutes to speak, and officers will be provided with an opportunity to respond or address any issues raised. Councillors, are there any items of general business? No, thank you. We move on to item 10, urgent business. Chief Executive Officer, have you received notice of any items of urgent business?
Nothing submitted, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Item 11 will close the meeting. There being no further items of business, I declare the meeting closed at 6:43 p.m. Thank you, everyone.